Gonna welcome everybody again. Appreciate everybody who's here. First of all, give me a heads up if you could hear me. I've had some problems with this microphone lately, so can you guys hear me? Give me a yes or a no in the chat real quick, and then we'll move forward. We'll okay, so you can hear me. All right, perfect. All right, we're going to do this YouTube live here. It's going to be a segment on Breaking Big Blue. We're going to do it on the Giants schedule release. We just got the Giants schedule today. Obviously, it was leaking out all day, but it gets announced officially at 8 p.m. So everybody's been breaking it down for the last 2 hours. We're going to do the same here. Um, I'm going to go over the difficulty of the schedule and just why it is so difficult, just why it panned out that way. And then I'm going to tell you, because I've now been to the all I guess it's so the Giants and Jets share a stadium and the Rams and Chargers share a stadium. So it's 30 stadiums. Uh they are I've been to all 30. So I'm going to tell you which is the best trip if you're a fan trying to plan a trip this year, which trip you should go on. And you say, "Oh, Las Vegas, obviously Las Vegas." Guess what? It's not Las Vegas. That's a little tease. I'll get to that in a few minutes. But let's go over the schedule. Ridiculously hard schedule. Starting off with 2 games on the road, not easy. That is a tough ask for this team. And those 2 games are vital. They have to get a split. The Giants have to get a split. They have to win one of the first 2 games of the season. Otherwise, it's just going to be another disaster. We're going to be sitting here by the middle of October, completely done and hopeless. And at that point, we're going to be saying, and the only thing that's going to be you're going to be talking about is when's Jackson Dart going to get into the lineup. We'll get into the most likely Jackson Dart spots as well. But 2 games on the road in the division, super tough in that the Giants haven't done particularly well in the division. Yes, they were pretty good against the Commanders for years. Last year, Washington beat them twice, though. Cowboys have absolutely owned them. 8 straight, they beat the Giants. The Giants are pretty much non-competitive with the Cowboys for much of that run. Brian Daboll has never beaten the Cowboys since he took over. So got to win one of these 2 games on the road. And that's a big ask for this team. Twice in 13 years, the past 13 years, the Giants have won the opener. This is just how big the opener is for the Giants. Twice in the past 13 years, they've won an opener. Those are the only 2 years that the Giants have made the playoffs. 2016, 2022. That's it. So that Washington game, that's how big that Washington game could be for this team. They kind of need to get things rolling in the right direction. They're not super talented. They're going to be an underdog in, let's see, they're going to be an underdog against Washington and Dallas, no doubt. Kansas City, Chargers, most likely. At Saints, if the Saints really stink coming out. Remember, they have no quarterback right now. There's a chance that the Giants are favored on the road in that game. But they're definitely an underdog versus Philly on Thursday Night Football. At Denver, they're going to be an underdog. At Philly, they're going to be an underdog. Versus San Francisco, they're going to be an underdog. At Chicago, they're going to be an underdog. Versus Green Bay, they're going to be an underdog. At Detroit, they're going to be an underdog. So up until that New England game, and we're talking week 13. So 12 games. The first 12 games, the Giants are likely to be underdogs. Now, things can change, but they are likely to be underdogs in 11 of those first 12 games. 11 of those first 12. And by the way, I saw a spread that said the Giants are already 7-point underdogs in the opener against Washington. Now, I'm a little bit of a believer that Washington game is one I'm going to watch out for. Washington's in my opinion, for a little bit of regression. Look what happened to the Houston Texans. C.J. Stroud, all-world quarterback, great player. Jaden Daniels, great player. But year 2, not everything is so easy. So to me, got to win one of those first 2 games. Start there. Get things rolling in the right direction. Now, where else can you see the Giants winning? Like, are they really? They got it. The Chargers is a game that they're going to try. That they're going to have to win. The Saints, they got to win one of those 2 games, no doubt. They get through the first 5, 2 and 3, not bad, kind of success. Denver, a game that's going to be a crucial game for them because they got Philly two times in a 3-week span. One on Thursday Night Football, week 6, and then again in week 8 with the Broncos, a game in Denver, squeezed in between there. So a huge stretch for the Giants to me is opening this season. Now, yes, Jason Silver says Giants defense good on paper, but we'll get a fairly good assessment early on. I do agree with that. We will get a good assessment early on, but you gotta understand too. Sometimes these things take time to come together, which is why it's just like we can't just assume the Giants defense is going to come out and be a dominant unit. That's not even realistic. It's going to take time for the unit to come together. So, I think they could hit their stride in the second half of the season, and that's when we could see them win some games. The thing is, can they stay afloat early in the year in order for that second half to mean anything? And by afloat, their first 9 games are brutal, right? Let's end with that San Francisco game in week 9. If they go 3-6 in those 9 games, I think that's a win for the Giants. And you're like 3-6 is not even good. I get it. But 3-6 in those 9 games, and then you have a chance. Okay, then you got at Chicago. We don't know what Chicago is going to be. You got Green Bay, Detroit, tough ones. At New England, winnable game. Washington again. Minnesota, tough team. Las Vegas, and then Dallas. So there are some winnable games late in the season. You win 4 of those games, and you win. Go 3-6 at the beginning, and you go 7-10, and you say, "Well, wow, that's a successful season for the Giants," especially if you can get Drake May in there at some point. And that's the other part of this equation right here. Okay, if things do go poorly, the wild card that Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll have is Jackson Dart. Drake May. I called him Drake May. Yeah, because I was thinking of them right around that New England game. Sorry, I meant Jackson Dart. The Giants. The wild card for Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen is Jackson Dart. If things go really bad early, if they're 1-5 after that Philly game, I wouldn't be surprised to see him week 7. So to me, that's the first spot that I look at and say, you know what? We might get Jackson Dart. Now, there's always this scenario where he's just so good this spring, so good this summer, that they feel like they have to get him in, right? Like Russell Wilson, who, by the way, is a starter right now. But Russell Wilson did when Matt Flynn in Seattle all those years back. Same thing could happen here. He could be so good that they're like, we got to play this guy. But the likelihood is they want to redshirt him. He's got a lot to learn. They have a Russell Wilson there, who's a Super Bowl winning quarterback, a little different than Matt Flynn, who was not a Super Bowl winning quarterback. But if they get off to a rough start, if they're 1-5, if they're even 2-4, that week 7 game at Denver, because now you got 10 days between the Philly game and that Denver game, that could be a game where we see Jackson Dart. If not there, I think we're looking at they have a really late bye this year. Week 14. I can't ever remember the Giants having a later bye than week 14. Week 14 bye. Looking at week 15, they play Washington. So that is a spot also where they can get Jackson Dart in if the season is already lost. So to me, those are the 2 spots. Week 7, Denver. Week 15, Washington. Week 15, Washington will give him 4 games to get some playing time, to get some experience. And for the most part, he was able to redshirt, sit, and learn behind Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston. Okay? And then if he shows some progress late in the season, again, in a bad season, that's Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen's case to keep their job. Right? Hey, look. You really want this young quarterback that we just drafted to have a new system, new coach, new scheme in year 2? No, we already spent a year developing him. Let us develop him. Give us time. Give us time. Give us time. Now, you can't do that if you're 3-14 again. Can't do that if you're 4-13 again. Can't go 6-11, 3-14, 4-13 in the NFL and keep your jobs. You just can't. So they're going to have to win a certain amount of games and have the hope that Jackson Dart is that guy. And it's going to be hard for that to not have that hope after one season, especially if you keep him on the bench most of the year, right? That's the beauty of having a backup quarterback, and he's not necessarily a normal backup quarterback. But the beauty of a backup quarterback is he always looks good on the side, and everyone always wants the backup quarterback to play because you don't actually see him play. Once you get to see him play, you're never that impressed, and you're like, oh, that's why he's a backup quarterback. So no matter what with Jackson Dart, like, he's talented, he's a rookie, we invested in him. He's a promising young player. And the less you see of him, the more he remains a promising young player, and you protect that image as a promising young player. So that's where we stand with the Giants schedule. I look at that front half as just the absolute killer. And the first 2 weeks to me, specifically, at Washington, at Dallas, I actually think that, and I know people think that, and like I said, they're probably around a touchdown underdog. I saw that. Let me pull it up. But a touchdown underdog. I think the Commanders are a team that, remember the Giants, they probably should have beat the Commanders. Washington kicked 6 field goals. What was it? They lost, what? It was 18-15 in that game. Week 2 last year. Crazy game. Graham Gano didn't play, got hurt, whatever it may be. But by the way, I'm trying to pull up to see if there's a spread for the Giants game. But that was definitely a winnable game. That their defense is still not exactly loaded at this point. I'm talking about the Commanders. Yes, Jaden Daniels is awesome. They added some pieces. Their offense could be even better. That's a little bit scary. But year 2 regression for quarterbacks, that's a thing. And so I do think that the Commanders, especially week 1, crazy things happen in week 1. That's a game that I could see the Giants potentially stealing. And that's the game they kind of really need to steal. Because we've seen Dallas has been tough for them. Dak Prescott, Giants, 7-point underdogs to the Commanders, over under 45.5. So clearly, week 1, they're big underdogs. Now, let's talk about best trips, okay? You're like, Vegas. It's got to be Vegas, right? Great trip. Go to Vegas. Have a good time. Stadium's awesome. We've been there a couple years ago. It's a big party. There's suites and to the point where there's a club there and there's tables and drink services outside, right outside the club, right on the field. It's like a suite right on the field. Beautiful, right? So much to like there. Big party. You go spend time in Vegas. But here's why it's not desirable. Week 17, Giants Raiders could be a brutal game. You're talking about basically Christmas week after Christmas, 3 days after Christmas. New Year's right around the corner. You're going to go to Vegas and have invested this money in what could be just a terrible game. Week 17, who knows who's even going to be playing? Right? So to me, that is not an ideal spot. Denver is a cool trip this year to me. That might be number 1 on my list. Dallas is always a good trip week 2. Chicago as well is an intriguing one to me. We're talking about early-ish November. Maybe it's not super cold yet. I don't mind going to Chicago in early November. I think that could be a pretty good trip. The Bears could be competitive. That could be pretty good. It's week 10. You hope the Giants aren't already done by week 10. So to me, I would probably listen, but I love Dallas. So week 2, Dallas division game, Dallas home opener. You still have hope in the Giants no matter what happens week 1. To me, it would go Denver, super cool place. Week 7, I'm in for Denver. Number 2, Dallas. Number 3, New Orleans. Number 4, Vegas. Obviously, New Orleans is like super party-ish, Mardi Gras type. And we're talking about a game where'd that Saints game go? Oh, week 5. So again, should be hope by week 5. You sure hope you're not hope. If you're hopeless by week 5, it's going to be a long season. And it's not going to get much better. So to me, those are the top 4 trips right there. You got New England later on. It's close, but Monday night, a lot of people don't like to go to Monday night. Got to work. That basically cost you 2 days off because you got to go Monday, and then are you really going to be at work on Tuesday morning? You drive back in the middle of the night, and it's in the middle of nowhere. I don't know. Not a huge fan of Foxborough. Week 13, Giants, Patriots could lack some meaning. Wouldn't be my top choice of games. Detroit, again, not the biggest fan of Detroit as a city. Week 12, a game the Giants probably will have a hard time winning. That Detroit team is loaded. One of the best, if not the best, in the NFC. I know the Eagles are probably have to be the favorites. They're the Super Bowl champs. But remember, going into the playoffs, the Lions were considered the best team in the NFC. And if not for injuries, probably were the best team in the NFC. So that doesn't intrigue me that much week 12. So now we're back to Denver, super cool city. There's a lot of cool things to do out there. You can do a lot of outdoorsy stuff. You can go drinking. It's super liberal. Last time we were there, by the way, was years ago. But yeah, I mean, dispensaries all over the place if that's your thing. Edibles. We were eating edibles on the sideline. That was like 8 years ago. And now it's a lot more normalized. It's legalized in a lot of places, but back then it was the norm in Denver. I can't imagine anything has changed there now because you go across the country and people just smoke weed everywhere. So if that's your thing, there's a lot of things to like about that Denver trip. It's my number one destination for this year. If you're going to pick a trip, try to make Denver week 7, Dallas week 2. That's my recommendations on trips if you're going to make it out in 2025. If you have any questions, I'll answer some of them now. So fire away if you have them. We'll call this the Giants After Dark section of the program. That's where I answer all your deepest, darkest Giants questions in Giants After Dark. We've got a few questions from Instagram that I've been saving, so let's get to them here. Hunter Miller asks, interesting that we have that week 14 bye. I think if we see Dart this year, it's if we're out of the playoff contention with 4 weeks ago. Yeah, I mentioned that's just an ideal spot right there for Jackson Dart to come in off that bye. I mean, we could sit here and say a week 14 bye is not ideal, but if they're any good, it is valuable to have a bye that week. And even if they're not good, it's valuable because it is an ideal landing spot, a soft landing spot to bring in a Brett Jackson Dart. You know, even Washington, Minnesota, Las Vegas, Dallas, those aren't exactly crazy, tough defensive matchups. I mean, Minnesota might be, but like Washington isn't, Las Vegas isn't. So I think that would be pretty good. Grim Solo says, I think we have a real chance of going 2-0 to start. I mean, I like your optimism, Grim, but let me just ask, what makes you think there's a real chance the Giants could go 0-2? I mean, start 2-0. They haven't beat the Dallas Cowboys since Joe Judge was the head coach. Okay, I mean, I think 1-1 would be a fantastic start for this team. Be realistic. I think 1-1 would be realistic for this team. Randy Cook said, if the O-line protection is below average, do you still want to start Dart? I think it's about giving him experience. So for the last 4 weeks, I think it's fine. Do I want him to get pummeled and beat up from week 7 on? If that's the case, no. But are Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen going to, do what they can to survive? I absolutely think that is the case here this season, right? And I can't begrudge them for that. That's the position they've been put in. And they also put themselves in by going 3-14. So Grim says, we've made real improvements and Dallas is going in the wrong direction. Maybe so, but yet Dallas they didn't even have Dak Prescott last year. And so clearly they weren't a very good team and they still beat the Giants, right? So they're still ahead of the Giants. Plus they're not a bad team. I mean, I know they might not be a real contender to win anything, but they're still a playoff threat and a pretty good team. So I certainly think the Giants are significant underdogs going into Dallas. Hey, maybe you're right. Let's see it. But I think a 1-1 start would be good for this team. Yeah, Jason Silverman says, you said before a few times that the Dallas experience is one of the best in the league. Yeah, I love that Dallas trip. I just think it's such a cool stadium. Everyone there is actually kind of really nice. they treat you well. It's a big party. It's pretty good. Nick Soldano asked Shane looking to bolster wide receivers. Any rumors beyond Gabe Davis? I haven't heard any real substance behind anything besides Gabe Davis, and even that's something that we're gonna have to sit and wait on. I believe he's gonna go check out some other options here before making a final decision. So sit and wait on that. Let's see. Jason Silverman says Shane Bowen will be under a lot of pressure if the defense has a rough start. No doubt about that. I completely agree on that. But you got to give him time. You can't just be like, oh, 2 games in or 4 games in, be like, how come our defense isn't really good yet? Like, you got to give it this time. All right, Stan McCune says, is Dable making more of an effort to be media friendly? It seems like he's flipped the switch the past couple months in terms of answering questions and not being so closed off to outsiders. Nah, I don't really see that. I don't think much has changed. The offseason in general, this isn't just him, but I mean, you see it with him for sure. I mean, people are a little more optimistic and friendly in the offseason because everyone is undefeated at the time. But I mean, Brian Dable still wouldn't even give us much about Jackson Dart at rookie minicamp. I mean, it was like, oh, well, every quarterback does a snap count. Like, just say something nice about Jackson Dart. That's all we're looking for. We're going to write a story about Jackson Dart. Tell us something nice about him. That's all. That's all we wanted to hear there. So I don't think that's the case. We've seen a much different Brian Dable. I think in the spring you see a much happier and healthy coaches all the time. Like they don't sleep during the season, so they sleep a lot more in the off season, and everything's good. So let's see. Ken Peters says, who's getting cut? Rocious, Bellinger, $3 million saving Eric Gray. I think more likely they're not going to cut these guys. People think that they're going to cut these guys for cap savings. No, they're going to move money around in deals. That's what's going to happen here. That's how they're going to do it. They're not looking to give up players who are useful to them at this point. And Nacho, Raheem Nunez, Roaches, Daniel Bellinger, these are useful players to the Giants. They should be, at least. I mean, they're part of their rotation. So I certainly don't expect those guys to be cutting Eric Gray. Yeah, he'd have to get beat out for a job. Let's see what happens. That we'll have to see. He'll have to win a job. Kevin Rowland said, if the Giants beat Dallas week 2, then it's time for you to kick that field goal, Jordan. I will kick that field goal before week 2. I'm going to try to do it by the middle of the summer, no doubt. Okay. So we'll get Biz, Chris. Why am I drawing a blank on his name? I'm thinking Biz Nawadi because Adam Biznawadi. Let's call him Chris Biz. Sorry, Biz, for getting your actual last name. We just call you Biz all the time. So, from Giants Insider, of course, we've made a bet about kicking a field goal, and we're going to make it happen this year. Going to make it happen. So, let's just go over the schedule one more time here. We'll wrap this up in a few minutes, but to me, the whole season for the New York Giants is contingent on those first 2 weeks. Hinges on how they do in those first 2 weeks against Washington and Dallas, both on the road, which is why it would be such a benefit if one of those 2 games was just at home. The fact that both are on the road is kind of the one part of this that I look at it, because no matter how you shook it out, the schedule is going to be difficult. Giants have the hardest schedule in the league, 574 winning percentage for these teams. But no matter how it shook out, it was going to be difficult. But when you know how important that early season stretch is for them, the early season is going to be for them. Twice in the last 13 years, they've won the opener. Those are the only 2 times they made the playoffs. You know how important that is. You would have preferred one of those 2 games to be at home. Now, home hasn't been great to the Giants. Won 1 game at home last year. And now you look at it this year. Look at their home games this year. How many home games are they actually going to win this year? Versus Kansas City. Versus the Chargers, 2 playoff teams last year. Versus Philly, the Super Bowl winners, versus San Francisco. You know, bad break for the Giants landing San Francisco as a home game. Versus Green Bay, playoff team. Versus Washington, when it was in the NFC Championship game last year. Versus Minnesota, had one of the best records in the NFC last year. Versus Dallas, still a quality team, has owned the Giants. That's their home schedule. There's not a single easy game out of that. Not a single easy home game for the Giants. And you say, oh, the NFL's screwing them, and I know people do that. Oh, they're screwing us. They don't like the Giants. That's not what it is at all. The schedule is predetermined. It has nothing to do with the league. It has to do with where you finished last year and what position the Giants finished in last place. Who it matches up. It's an alternating system. It just so happens they're matched up with two really strong divisions this year. The AFC West, you're talking about Kansas City, Chargers, Denver, and the Raiders. Okay? And then you're talking NFC North. You're talking Minnesota. You're talking Detroit. You're talking Chicago. And who's the team? And Green Bay there. So, like, the fourth place team in that division was Chicago last year, and they could be pretty decent this year. They could be good this year. So you have 8 games right there. If you want to really say the only one that, the Giants have a chance to be a favorite in is the Raiders. And that being on the road, who knows? So those 8 games. And then on top of that, you get the bad break of you finished in last place. Well, the 49ers had so many injuries. We all know they're not a last place team, talent-wise. They finished in last place in the NFC West. So you get matched up with the last place team in the NFC West. Turns out to be them. Get matched up with the last place team in the NFC South. Turned out to be the Saints. Okay, that's a bet. That worked in the Giants' favor. The last place team in the AFC East, New England. Okay, that works out in the Giants' favor. The last place team in the AFC North, right? No, they don't play the last place in the AFC North or the AFC South. Right, the extra game is the New England game, right? The 17th game. So that's how you end up with such a difficult schedule. And the Giants played 10 teams that made the playoffs last year. 10 teams that made the playoffs. Only the Eagles and the Lions face more. They face 11 teams that made the playoffs last year. But that makes sense. The Eagles and the Lions. Eagles won the Super Bowl. They were one of the better teams in the NFC. The Lions were the number 1 seed, I believe, in the NFC last year. They were the best team in the NFC. So, yeah, they should have a hard schedule. I'm trying to read this one comment. I'm not really understanding it, Svi. K-Max says, any chances are improved terrorizes Jaden Daniels and Commanders week 1? Yeah, that's why I think there's an outside chance that to me, like, that's the chance for an upset. Week 1, crazy things happen. Commanders offensive line got a little better this offseason. Still probably not a strength, especially week 1. It'll take time for that unit to come together. You could have Giants defensive front. That's a game that they could dominate, that they could win. I can see that happening. And it's not a superly overly talented Washington defense. I could see the Giants offense having some success with months to prepare for that game. That's one you look at and you say, you know what? To me, I know they're 7-point underdogs, but if they stole that game, I wouldn't be completely stunned. Surprise, sure. 7-point underdogs. But to me, that's tough. Oh, Svi says, go win 9 games and announce we're coming for 26. Okay. All right. 9 wins is a lot. You're asking them to triple their win total from last year. Triple. So I don't know. I think if the Giants win 7 games, go 7-11, I think that's kind of a success for them, to be honest with you. Eric Petrizzo says, I understand that Russ is the veteran. Dart needs time, but when, not if Russ struggles. Okay, I agree. Eventually he will struggle. Dable will need to play Dart to save his and change job. Yeah, absolutely. Jackson Dart is going to play when they need him to save their jobs. That's what it's going to come down to. Either that or he's going to redshirt and not play till, post bye week at the earliest. Those are the two scenarios. When Brian Dable just gets completely fed up of Russell Wilson playing poorly, he's going to have no choice but to try to save himself, save everybody, and play Jackson Dart. That's the situation the Giants are in. 7 wins is probably the number that guarantees Dable comes back, right? I think if they win 7 games and they're able to sell, hey, look, we put a year into developing Jackson Dart. Do you really want to change schemes, coaches, everything, year 2 for a young quarterback? That's going to be their pitch. It's a pretty good pitch. So, K-Max says earliest Dart appears based on schedule week 9 versus Frisco. I said week 7 because you got the 10 days between that Thursday night Philly game and at Denver. And you're looking at it and you're saying, if they happen to, like, they have a really tough schedule, if they lose all the games, they're going to be underdogs, and that's going to be 5 of the first 6 at least. Let's consider that they might be favored in the Saints game. And let's say they're sitting there at 1-5, and the season's about to go off the rails. You got at Denver, at Philly, San Francisco, at Chicago coming up. That might be total desperation time for Brian Dable if they're in that spot at 1-5. So to me, it's week 7, the earliest you could see Jackson Dart. Unless, of course, he's just so good in the spring and the summer. It's in the realm of possibilities. Highly doubt it. I give it like a 5% chance of happening, but he's just so good that they decide we have to play this guy from the start. Jumanji Hunter says, do you see no chance of Winston coming in first? No, I think you're right. It's a possibility. If Russell Wilson's playing poorly and they're 2-4, I think you might see Winston try and spark him. Right? Hey, remember they once put in Tommy DeVito to try and spark him. Hey, I think he could give us a jump. He could really spark us. Benched him after he got hurt, benched him right after that. Now they're done with him, pretty much. At least so it seems, based on the numbers at quarterback. So, I don't know. Svi says 8 wins, I feel, is possible, and that's good year versus schedule. Yeah, for sure. If they get to 8 wins, it's a good year. And hey, be optimistic. This is the time to be optimistic. I'm not here to poo-poo anyone's optimism. I'm not going to pick them to win 8 games, especially with this schedule. But, stranger things have happened. We didn't expect them to be good in 2022. Ken Kozimor says 7 wins is a good season. Let's hope for more. Watching from the Philippines. Oh, that's pretty cool. Thanks for tuning in from the Philippines. Svi, if you say, what am I picking? I think I'm probably pick 6-11 for this Giants team. That would be probably my number. I haven't really gone over it, so not official, but somewhere in that range. And even then, you have trouble coming up. Well, here, I'll do it real quick. Washington. I'm going to give them a surprise win against Washington. A loss against Dallas, a loss against Kansas City at home, a loss against the Chargers at home. That Chargers team is pretty good and pesky. Justin Herbert's a really good player, too. It's only a matter of time before he becomes the star that everyone thinks he is. I'll give him a win against the Saints, a loss against the Eagles, both 2 losses against the Eagles. Should I give him Denver? I got to give him Denver or Chicago. Let's just give him one of those 2. Let's say I'll give him Chicago. I'll give Denver a loss, San Francisco a loss, Chicago a win. Green Bay and Detroit a loss, New England a win, Washington a loss, Minnesota a loss, and then I'll give him Vegas a win and a split with Dallas. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, 6-11. There you go. That's how I got to 6-11. Wins at Washington, at Saints, at Chicago, at New England, Vegas, and Dallas. So, has there been solid reporting on why they brought in Winston because of his past? Because Mara has reportedly denied people for that in the back, and it's disappointing for me to see him on the team. Jilly Jane. Yeah, we're talking about something that was a long time ago. Uh, I don't think that's something that they have really harped on. Was an accusation. I don't really know the details of it, and I haven't really heard much about it. So I really can't really tell you why. But you're right. I haven't heard much about it. So there hasn't been solid reporting on it. And it's something I've looked too deeply into. But hey, it's your right to be disappointed if you are. But uh, I don't know the details of that to be quite honest with you. Is Gabe Davis a Giant? He says no. He's actually going to go at least check out some other options. So the Giants are kind of in wait and see mode on Gabe Davis. All right. Well, I appreciate everybody coming out here, trying this YouTube thing. Hope it works. Hope people like it. Uh, Julie Jane's asking me more questions about the James Winston thing, but I'm not going to get into that because I honestly I don't know enough about it. I don't have the knowledge to sit here and speak confidently or knowledgeable on everything that happened there. So, um, but it hasn't been something I've heard anything about. So we'll see. Maybe that changes as we go along here. Someone does look into it, but in the meantime, we're going to see. We're talking about the Giants' schedule here, right? Hardest schedule in the league. So we'll see. And I'll end with this because George Maspool says, "What's your honest first impressions of Dart so far?" Rookie minicamp. Let me explain what this is like, people. Rookie minicamp is like the equivalent. It's as important as the morning shoot around in the NBA. Okay. The Giants draft picks don't even participate. It's a field full of players who aren't even going to be in the NFL this year. It's basically an orientation for the players. You're showing up, you're learning where the bathroom is, you're learning where the cafeteria is, you're learning some of the plays in the playbook. They want to see how you retain information. He's an impressive person, from what I can tell. Obviously, first impression for me. Haven't had spent a ton of time around him. Impressive person, built solid, definitely not skinny. He's solid, thick. You can see, okay, I could see this why people want to invest in the athlete and the person. That's all I can tell you about first impression so far on Jackson Dart. So with that being said, the schedule says, we'll see Jackson Dart likely not until after the bye in week 14, unless things go totally off the rails, which is not out of the realm of possibilities because the schedule is tough, tough, tough. The hardest schedule in the NFL. Vegas still has the Giants of 5.5 wins. This KMax says 7-point underdogs, according to ESPN Bet, week 1 against Washington. Appreciate everyone for stopping by. Do it again soon. See you next time.